It might be worth initially, before talking another time about individual scenes, kind of having a general think about Jinx and Vi's kind of interpersonal relationship and having a look at their kind of dynamics and general cycles. I think that's probably going to be the easiest way to do it for now. Then we can come up with some specific examples later on. And so I'm just moving my PowerPoint around so it's in front of me. Yeah, we can look at other examples, like more specific scenes. And we're in this strange place at the moment in the series where I've kind of left it with like the Vanda Vi Jinx hug, where things are kind of trending in the right direction. But I don't want to think too much about that. I want to focus more on when things weren't trending in the right direction. So up to the point where they were effectively trying to kill each other. Because then what will be interesting is to apply the model to why things have improved. But I feel like if we go straight into that, we're kind of shortcutting this a little bit. Yeah, so kind of end of episode 3. That's when the coloured grey and everything came up, wasn't it? That's where we're going to go up to. But generally, just when Vi and Jinx aren't getting on. Well, yeah. So I think Matt's right up to the end of episode 3. And then what will start to happen is, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen in the next episode, but you can probably start to introduce a bit of a virtuous cycle towards like the end of 5, but I don't want to do that yet because that's like the second half. Because if we do that now, we're going to lose kind of the experience of formulating the problems. So I think about where to start on this. Where's my drawing thing? So let's start up in this box. Can you see? Yeah, let's start up in this box. We need to think of a time, or sometimes, or generally speaking, when Vi and Jinx are together. So we've got Jinx here as essentially the service user. We've got Vi as the relative. So Jinx, we know Jinx has hallucinations, whether they're trauma driven, whether they're BPD driven, whether they're serious mental illness driven. We kind of don't, that doesn't matter right now. So when Jinx has these experiences, what do we think is going through her mind? What kind of thoughts do you think she might be having about the experience? So she has an hallucination. What do you think she makes of having a hallucination? Yeah, exactly. So she might be having the thought, because there's actually evidence for this. So she said to Vi before, "Oh, you're actually real." So she's probably having some kind of thought of, "Is this real?" Could be a thought that she's having. So the question is really, what does she think about her own hallucinations, as in her own explanation of why she's having hallucinations? Do we think that she thinks to herself that the hallucinations are a problem? Obviously, a lot of this is just open to speculation because she's not here. We can't ask her, and there's no real, scene where she explains to us exactly what she thinks about them. So we have to infer some things. Yeah, exactly right. So something that, so Matt says they typically remind. Where's this going to pop out? There. They typically remind of things she has jinxed. So that kind of reminder would kind of fit in here. So she's kind of got this schema, hasn't she? She's got this schema and belief about herself that she's a jinx. Because what happens is, on top of this trigger and all of this, there's that massive 5 Ps formulation we wrote up before with her entire kind of history and predisposing factors and everything. So all of them would feed into this. So she's got this schema that she's a jinx. And what that probably leads to is this information processing bias where everything that goes wrong is because she's a jinx. So that makes sense. So that schema and that information processing bias will lead to thoughts about herself. It will lead to thoughts about her hallucinations and the situation that she's in, but they'll be heavily skewed by her schema and information processing. Yeah, so Luana raises a good point, but we're going to be, let's not worry about when her symptoms look like they're reducing, because that will overcomplicate things. And what will happen is when we talk about things that are going well, like Isha maybe being a protective factor, then we can look at why that has led to a reduction in hallucinations. They're a symptom of her trauma. I'm guessing you're talking about the hallucinations here, but she's turned it into her support system over time. Yeah, from her perspective, probably because she doesn't have anyone else really. Yeah. So last phrase is a good point. Is this real? She might be thinking, it's my fault because I'm a jinx. If she thinks she's a jinx, could there be thoughts around actually people are better off without me because I'm just going to mess things up for them? But she still wants some connection with Vi. So it's not strong enough for her to think, actually, I don't want to go near Vi. I want to keep my distance from Vi because if I get involved with her, then I might screw things up for her again. There's still something there around her wanting a connection with Vi because it's really difficult because we've got, on one hand, she's like the schema of I'm a jinx. When I'm about, people die. When I'm about, people get hurt. You know, I screw things up. I'm a jinx. But on the other hand, she's got like that BPD thing of I don't want to be abandoned. Um, you know, I want to try and keep people close to me. So she's really stuck between those two places. And it's obviously really distressing, as is evidenced. Yeah, exactly. So like Jill is saying there, a lot of thoughts about being replaced then or abandoned. So there's like a push-pull there, isn't there? It's I don't want to be abandoned, but at the same time, I'm a jinx, so those close to me I might hurt. It's a really difficult situation to be in. But I just look at Lana's. I mean, we're not too concerned about the Vanda stuff at the moment because that's going to start turning it into a virtuous cycle. We're kind of looking at just before that. We see at the end of episode 3, her plan was to finish what's left of her family, including herself. She thinks the world is better without her. Yeah. And that makes sense from her perspective, doesn't it? Because it's everyone I ever get close to, I hurt or die. I don't want to live the rest of my life not being close to anyone. So therefore, we'll just end everything. That makes sense. From her perspective and her system as a whole, it makes sense. I mean, yeah, Carol. So yeah, she has showed this doubt before. And so this schema would have been building for a while because the sense of that she would probably make if we think about this is that she was always, I mean, she overheard the Milo conversation where he didn't want her about because she gets in the way. Then there's scenes where she's you know, being asked to stay behind, not because she's going to get in the way, but because people care about her and don't want her to get hurt. But that's not her perception of that. So you can see that schema gradually building. And then what really reinforces it is the explosion. So she's going to have all these thoughts around, is this real? Is my fault I'm a jinx? I always hurt people. People around me always kind of die. They're better off without me. But at the same time, she's got conflicting thoughts of, I don't want to be abandoned. And then we get into kind of like what Matt was talking about is her kind of solution to that. So what we're looking at here is a vicious cycle. So this is where things are going wrong. And actually Vi is maintaining Jinx's presentation and vice versa. So Jinx will be maintaining Vi's presentation. And then when you throw in a protective factor, which in real life would be an intervention. So for example, you say something to Vi like, when you're with Jinx, perhaps there's something that we can do that could make your interaction with her more validating and more than understanding, more of an understanding of her pain, then maybe Jinx will respond better to that. And then because all of these things are interconnected, you see positive shifts start to happen. That's called a virtuous cycle. So Jinx is going through this process, having a hallucination. She's got this scheme about being a Jinx. She's got an information processing bias where she probably views everything through the lens of being a Jinx. she has all these thoughts about, is this real? Is it my fault? I'm a jinx. People, she probably has thoughts about people leave me. I hurt people. That kind of thing. I mean, we've got good sense there. I'm not sure if I've actually used quotes there. Let's have a look. No, I've used at signs. And when she's having these thoughts, then she has these emotions, don't they? So guilt, someone said earlier. She probably has, what other emotions do we see her frequently having? Anger. Distress. Yeah, so exactly. So what we'll do, Lana, if you hold that thought, when we get to behavior here on Vi's side, you'll have snapping. And what you'll get is, so in fact, we can just write it in now. In fact, while people say stuff, we might as well put them in the right place. So actually, she snaps. Okay. And like you say, so where you say, Lana, this reaffirms all her insecurities, her snap here is directly tied to her schema here. And that connects with the thoughts that she'd have in that moment. So Vi snaps, oh, information processing bias, Vi snapping at me because I'm a jinx and she doesn't want me around. The thoughts then are, oh yeah, I hurt people and people leave me. And then we end up in this cascade of this kind of maintenance cycle again. And then just to briefly summarize this, when this is happening, Vi doesn't like it. So that comes up number 9 here and it triggers Vi. And then Vi's stuff starts happening. And then if she snaps again, then it comes back into this. And you can see how all of this just reinforces each other. So a point of intervention, if you're actually working with this, say, like as a family or as a parent-child kind of thing, like the behavior would be an intervention point. So it would be looking at ways where instead of snapping, what would be a more appropriate, helpful behavior? So like not snapping or offering warmth and comfort or trying to be compassionate. Because actually, if you start to do that, then this might not be as intense. Like it's still going to be there because obviously just one time of not snapping isn't going to change much. But over time, you might loosen that schema off a little bit. Or you might start to impact this information processing bias. And then because you've changed this bit, these thoughts might start to change a little bit. So it might go from it's like always my fault to, okay, I've done some things that were my fault, but maybe things in the future won't be my fault. And then that can have an impact on the rest. Let me have a look. Yeah, it's not so much about what the hallucinations make her think about others, it's her sense of what's going on for her. So she might be really distressed by kind of seeing Milo, for example. But on the other hand, she might not be. She might be, oh, I've still got Milo with me as this hallucination, and he's giving me loads of advice and he talks to me. Yeah, I'm all right with that. Or she could be, holy shit, I'm like imagining the person who I killed in a bomb explosion. I don't want that in my head. Get out. The reason that kind of makes the reason we look at it that way is because this model was originally designed where one person has psychosis, which is why I thought it would be a nice model to kind of it felt relevant. But quite often in kind of a real life situation, the psychosis causes loads and loads and loads of interpersonal problems because it's the hallucinations and the delusions that lead to, neglecting yourself, being paranoid, not trusting people, not going out, not socializing, which is why there's such an emphasis on that in this model. But the model can be generalized out to other problems. So it's not just about the hallucinations. It's so if this was someone who's depressed, you might have the thoughts that are, I'm worthless, I'm no good to anyone. What's the point? You might have those kind of thoughts. Because if someone's having those thoughts, then the likelihood is their behavior is going to be very it's going to match those thoughts. It's what's the point of doing anything? What's the point of getting up? What's the point of trying to get social connection with someone? Because there's just no point to life. Jealousy. Yeah, we've got some jealousy in there, haven't we? This isn't going to look very pretty by the end of this, by the way, but that's okay. So when we see so generally speaking, when we see Jinx feeling this way, guilt, anger, jealousy, distress, how's that reflected in her behavior? So we know that she when she's got the rail gun or the chain gun, whatever it's called, and she's kind of firing indiscriminately really early on, and also at the same time when the firelights come and she's firing at them, and Vi kind of sees how Jinx is responding to that, would you say she's out of control? So reckless, yeah, reckless is a good word. So yeah, violent. So kind of violent aggression. She's almost venting, but with a machine gun. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's kind of what it's like, though, isn't it? It's kind of just letting it all out, but with no real foresight of the consequences. Yeah, I think it is. I think there could be a bit of dissociation in there, Lana. Yeah, I agree with that. When she's in that state, I think there probably is. So we'll put dissociation in the behavior category. It's questionable whether, like, if we're getting academic about it, whether there would be a physical symptom box. And because dissociation is a nervous system response, it could go in there, but we'll put it in behavior for now because we know what we mean. The point of this is we kind of know what we mean by it, not if things are in the right box or not. Yeah, it's similar to when Jace did it with his hammer. Yeah. I'm thinking about I'm going to explain my thought process here. I'm thinking about whether Jace doing it had a different kind of reason behind it. So when we think about behavior, we think about two types. We think about form of behavior, and we think of function. So we think of form. I'm going to draw it on here, look, form, and we think of function. And in every kind of behavior analysis, we always ask the question, WTF. What does WTF mean? Anyone know what WTF stands for? So, of course, WTF stands for what's the function? So we don't actually concern ourselves with the form too much. So the form is what you see. It's the behavior that you actually see the person doing. The function is the reason that they're doing it. So an example could be, I'm just trying to be sensitive with my language, but let's say I work with lots of young people who will, for example, take themselves to a bridge and then phone the police and say they're going to jump off it. It happens quite regularly. And the form is taking them to themselves to a bridge and calling the police. Now, the function can be very different. So someone could look at that and go, oh my gosh, she wants to end it. That's why she's gone to the bridge. Someone else might look at it and go, oh my gosh, she wants connection with people. She wants attachment. That's why she's phoned the police, and that's why she wants people to come to her. So they're two very, very different functions with the same form. So this is where my so when Donglor the Third said, "Is this similar to Jace?" This is the direction my mind goes in. So my mind goes in to thinking of when Jace does it. Does Jace do it because he's become a little bit kind of he's given into anger? It's kind of pushed him into his limbic system a little bit, and he's not thinking straight, because when you go into your limbic system, it turns your prefrontal cortex off a bit. Like, it's not off on, but it changes it has an impact on the pathways, so he can't decision make very well. So is his behavior driven by that? Because he doesn't have much of a trauma history. Not saying that he hasn't experienced trauma. I'm just thinking it looks more driven by that than anything. Whereas when we see Jinx do the same thing with the chain gun, is it because she's dissociating because of a trauma response? So the form looks very similar, but I wonder if the underlying mechanisms that drive that behavior are different. I mean, this is a bit academic. We're not going to know. It's probably not the thing that people really need to be thinking about. This is probably like the thing that geeks like me think about. But this is what this is what I like. And it's a lot easier when you can get the person in a room with you and talk to them about it. So whenever I watch this stuff, like, this is what I'm thinking. I'm always thinking, like, WTF? I'm always thinking, what's the function? Like, in everything, it's really hard to turn it off once you see it. Even in real life, kind of like, what's the function? Why have they done that? It's not, oh, they did that. It's always like, why? Why have they done that? And that's then gets you better at perspective taking, because then you're putting yourself in their shoes, so to speak, and trying to understand the function for them. So where Carol says, could she be in a manic episode? Yeah, she could be. So then that behavior is, even though it looks the same as Jace is it has got a completely different underlying mechanism of action to it. Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to put it on over. So we've got the what and the why. And in my line of work, I don't care too much about the what. The what is things like, is what the police and people care about. I care about the why. Because actually, if you can help people with the why, then you can find other behaviors that they can do that still meets that why, which perhaps isn't as risky or illegal in my line of work. Yeah, it could be arrogance. I mean, I'm not sure if arrogance is really an emotion. Just being a little bit pedantic. I'm going to have a look. Interestingly, a lot of people online are saying that arrogance is a behavior. So there could be an emotion underneath that. I'm not going to highlight your comment, Lana, just in case some algorithm bot picks it up and wonders what on earth we're talking about in here. So right, let's not get too lost in this, because I can believe me, I've gone down a bit of a rabbit hole today with my brain. I haven't written it yet, but I was thinking about the am I going to get my arrow? Oh, I can go with my arrow. That's right. I've been going down a bit of a trauma reenactment rabbit hole with the Tea Party scene, but I'm going to write something up about it, because I don't know whether my brain's just really weird, but I can do this thing where I set my brain a question, and then I can just not thinking about it again for like a couple of days, and then at some point it will just produce me a load of answers. Normally when I'm in the shower or something. They call them like beta states or something like that. And it seems to work quite well. And my brain today produced me this lovely kind of thought process of of Jinx reenacting her abandonment trauma within that Tea Party scene. And I think that's probably an interesting way to consider it, which is probably the route I'm going to go down. But I'm still kind of working it out. It's the kind of thing that wakes me up at like 3 a.m. and then I have to get up and write it, or I'll forget again. The chase with children memes are horrendous and I can imagine. Oh, I haven't seen any. I'd really like to. I'm still trying to avoid, like, it's really annoying, because what I want to do at some point is I want to watch other therapists talk about this and then almost like critique or comment, agree, disagree with them. Not in a, you're wrong kind of way, but like an educational experience for me to see someone else's perspective. Because I think those would be some quite cool videos to make. But I can't watch any of them at the moment in case of spoilers. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It does it. It's not always lovely, Lana. Like people just tend to talk about the good stuff. My brain produces loads of stuff. I was up at like I was up at 3 o'clock this morning because my brain was just thinking about like a new editing technique to make my editing faster. And I was just lying in bed and I was like, I really want to try this technique to see if it's going to speed things up for me. And I thought I could just do it in the morning. Like I can just go to sleep now and like I don't need to deal with this right now. And I got up in the end because I was just thinking about it so much. I got up and I thought, oh, I'm going to try it. And the way when you edit videos, you're going to like process stuff, and it was going to take like 12 minutes. And I was like, oh, I've got 12 minutes now. And I don't know what happened, but I ended up watching videos of like these super plungers that can unblock toilets really well. not that I've got a blocked toilet or anything, but I was fascinated by it. I was like, how does this work? Like my mind was just like, what's going on with these? I got stuck in that for like an hour of I'm trying to understand how these plungers work. And my computer had done its thing within 20 minutes earlier by that point. It's just, yeah. Don't they call 3 a.m. the witching hour or something? I said to my daughter, she said, I said I was up last night. And she went, what time was it out of interest? And I said, I was 3 a.m. And she was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, it's the witching hour. But I have got this video coming soon, although I've not written it yet, but I'm thinking about this Tea Party scene that Maria kind of asked me about. I can't even remember Maria's question now about it, but I've gone probably massively off tangent. But what I'm thinking and what I'm what my mind is coming up with is I think really, really interesting. I think people will like it. Right, where do we get up to? Because look, I'm going a massive thing here, and I appreciate people's attention spans are different. So she does this behavior. She does this reckless, violent, aggressive. She dissociates. She attacks people. We see her attacking Vi. Does she normally initiate it? Or does Vi sometimes initiate it? End of 3. Who's initiating it when they go in? Because Jinx is standing there. Caitlyn takes the shot, but it's her reflection. But who kind of started that little skirmish? I remember. Yeah, I think it does depend on perspective. Yeah, and I guess he then asks the question, when did it actually start? But when this is happening, so when Vi, let's think of, I mean, let's think of, say, I don't know, any of the Vi and Jinx scenes really where they're not getting on. So prior to like 4, so 3, season 2, episode 3, and previously, when Jinx is behaving this way, and I guess because of the nature of Arcane, it doesn't have to be directly in front of Vi. Vi could have heard about it through other means. What does this do to Vi? Like, what's Vi's response in all of this? So, in other words, Jinx will do something and it will trigger Vi. So the behavior of the service user, so Jinx's behavior triggers her. Now, Vi's got a schema herself. And Vi will also have her own information processing biases. I mean, Vi blames herself for everything. Exactly, right? So here, I'm going to try to do this with this. I could probably do this on my iPad, but I don't like looking down all the time. It hurts my neck. So there's blame, isn't there? There's kind of a blame and kind of responsibility type thing, I'm guessing. So like a responsibility of, well, I need to get Powder back, or I need to get Jinx back, however she's kind of phrasing in her mind. Oh God, responsibility is such a long word. Oh my God. Responsibility. Responsibility. Right. So yeah, she blames herself for everything. She gets more protective. Yeah. Season 1, Vi tried to de-escalate most times. Did she? What did she do to de-escalate? Because that will go down in our little behavior box. So there's thoughts here, aren't there, about like Powder is still in there or something like that. She's still Powder. And I need to get her back. That kind of thing. I need to get her back because it's my fault. Something along those lines. I can see the comments whizzing up in the corner of my eye. I'll have a check in a minute. Yeah, so she thinks Jinx as the monster I created. So I'm guessing like that kind of fits with I need to get her back because it's my fault. I mean, it's my fault. I mean, it's my fault that that she was abandoned, I guess. That's how Vi sees it in a way. Because she got whisked off to a full package at Stillwater. Who was coming back to me with de-escalating? Yeah, so this is really interesting. She kept pushing for Powder to come out and rejected Jinx. So, I mean, imagine that from Jinx's perspective. So we've got this weird thing where Vi's trying to almost like fix Jinx, but in doing so keeps trying to kind of reach Powder within her. But by doing so, she's invalidating Jinx's identity. So that's what I kind of see here. I actually think she comes across as quite invalidating to Jinx. Now remember, when we're talking about this, it's not the behavior, it's not the form of the behavior here that's the problem. It's the perception of this behavior by the service user. So every time that you hear Vi talking to Jinx as Powder, or referring to Jinx as Powder, or saying things like, you know, Powder's still in there, whatever, Jinx just probably feels really invalidated. My actual, yeah, trying to talk her down and negotiate at the tea party. My mind's presented me with this choosing the chair dilemma in the tea party, which I'm formulating as a trauma reenactment to force her to be abandoned again, which is the whole purpose of that. Like, Vi can't win. And it's an unconscious, I'm gonna feel abandoned as an attempt at mastery, which is going to end up really maladaptive for me and re-traumatize me again, which is a well-known documented reason for trauma reenactments. But I don't want to give too many spoilers in that video. But I hope you're quite interested in that. I actually think the answer, she needs to kind of try and sit in both chairs. Vi shouldn't have, Vi, although she didn't really. If Vi was forced to pick a Jinx or Powder chair, she should have said, "You're both. Both of you are there." That would be more validating, obviously, if we're in a kind of more real world scenario. So I actually think a lot of this invalidating behavior to Jinx really triggers Jinx. But I'm interested to see the de-escalation. In season 1, Jinx is usually the first aggressor. Okay, so yeah, so that behavior would obviously trigger Vi. Yeah, Vi didn't want to believe Jinx was Powder. Yeah. Yeah, she kept pushing for Powder to come out, rejected Jinx. I mean, there's another rejection, isn't there? She still thinks Powder can be saved, and I think there's a part of Jinx that kind of notices that, but that invalidates Jinx. It invalidates all of Jinx because Powder is still in Jinx. Like they're still the same person. Pushing the gun down and trying to talk to her. What trying to think when that happened. And what the behavioral outcome was. So she did try reassuring Jinx. She did in the tea party, like that was the form. But that's not how it was perceived, was it, by Jinx? She didn't find it reassuring at all. That's the important part. Yeah, yeah. Like what Jill's saying here. So she's trying to talk her down and negotiate the tea party, but that comes across as invalidating to Jinx. Yeah, so there's more stuff about responsibility there. Yeah. So this was probably the closest that Vi was getting to probably what Jinx needed to hear, I would say. She may have lost Jinx a bit on there. It's going to be okay. We can just leave. But I think the start of that, the kind of the apology, the recognition of, okay, I shouldn't have called you that. The recognition of, I never should have left you. Even though she didn't, but she did from Jinx's perspective. But that's good for Vi to kind of acknowledge that. You did what you had to survive. Lovely. Yeah. Not so sure on the, it's going to be okay, we can just leave. But like Vi's trying her best. Like I'm not like in the moment when you're talking to someone like that, I think that's a very, very good a good kind of choice of words that she used in that situation. Yeah, so you're right, Matt. Interesting how Silco says Powder must die for Jinx to live, while Vi essentially wants to kill Jinx to save Powder. Yeah, and I wonder because of Jinx is more, she's more Jinx than Powder. She will see Vi's response as really invalidating, and probably Silco's response as more validating. So it makes sense that she would be drawn more to Silco. Yeah, so this and it started like there's some shifts that happen really quickly, and I don't know if that's just I don't know if that's done on purpose, or I don't know if it's because they were running out of episodes and they needed to get a lot more plot in that they wanted to, because you can already tell, where are we, episode 5, you can already tell that we're losing a bit of the cool story about the inequality between Zorn and Piltover. It's kind of shifted more towards character driven narratives at the moment, which is still good, it's still enjoyable, but it's not so much of the kind of social consequence stuff. Maybe that will change, but it does, this season feels different so far. And I wonder if that's impacting on Jinx and Vi's relationships and how that's being portrayed. Because things are changing really quickly. And I kind of commented in the video that, you know, Jinx is looking relatively stable in that episode. And we do know that people who experience BPD have periods of stability, especially when they get in kind of attached relationships. But it feels really quick. I mean, I guess there's a bit of a time skip, but it still feels relatively quick. I mean, some of the literature around intervention for BPD is like, you know, 7 years for them to be I don't know if they use the term recovered, but you know, to start seeing good outcomes. But hey, maybe Jinx is on the she's not at the top of the bell curve. She's one of the outliers. And then of course we're talking about a whole world that isn't actually real, that we can't apply any of our data to. But it feels like this has shifted really quick. What's Jill saying is interesting. Interesting. As someone said something up the top. I think Vi's very aware that Powder vowing to Jinx was tied into her disappearing. Yeah, she's reminded that she's a Jinx. That's why Vi doesn't yet. Yeah, that honestly makes no sense to me still. And it was like a switch, a writing issue as far as I'm concerned. Okay, shouting the names of people Jinx killed. Oh, Jill, what's interesting? Maybe that's something I actually said. Isn't it weird that the first place my mind jumps is that it wasn't me or someone else must have said something cool in the comments? Vi's happy that their parents didn't see their daughter go insane. Yeah, I'd imagine so. Vi is a reminder. Yeah, Vi tried to reassure Powder that she wouldn't leave. I don't think it lands well, though. I think that was the problem with that paragraph that I highlighted before. That last thing of we can just go, or we can go together. I can't remember what it was now exactly, but I don't think it lands well at all. I mean, in episode 8, she does sell Jinx out by name to the council. Why even Kate was hesitant to me? It kind of feels like at the tea party she was saying it to de-escalate. Maybe. Vi gave up on powder at the tea party. Gave up on powder. Yeah, okay. But she realised she's still there with Isha like later on. Yeah. So if this situation is still during the dinner party, she already gave up. Yeah. Because actually what it's too early to do this, but at some point, because the purpose of this formulation really is to look at points where intervention could be made. But it'd be interesting if you did like an Isha formulation, because that would look very different. And this formulation, that would be more virtuous, I'd imagine. I mean, we could do that at some point. But there's also the Vi, I mean, kind of Vi and Vanda situation could change things as well. So although they aren't direct, although they're not direct intervention points for Vi, because they're kind of external, this is the difficulty of formulating human behavior. They're still going to have an impact. Yeah, exactly. CETEC. Ginty Buddy, at least initially, Vi tries to start because she knows she can't win. Because from Vi's perspective, if she chooses Jinx, she loses powder. If she chooses powder, she invalidates Jinx. She can't win. And she purposely can't win. She's been purposely put in that situation to not win. So Jinx can be re-abandoned all over again and hence reenact her trauma. Well, exactly. They don't, do they? They're you can't just unpick one part of yourself. So you can't tell they're the person, and that's the acknowledgement that Vi needs to. It'd probably be helpful if she could somehow get that across to Jinx, is like, I love you as you are. Like, I understand that you've done what you needed to do to survive. And I understand that you're no longer powder. You're this new person with all of these experiences that you've had. But that's okay. But that would be really hard for Vi to say, I'd imagine. Yeah. Oh, here we go. I probably should have read the comments down. Matt kind of answered how I did. Exactly. That is the issue. And that's why it's so invalidating to Jinx. Yeah. She is. She's trying to reenact that trauma. But I'll explain that in another video, because you're going to be quite sensitive with trauma reenactments. I just want to catch up with some of these. Yeah, it's more complicated by the fact Vi was in prison for 7 years, exactly, right? And then she even says, doesn't she? She even brings it up at the tea party. And it almost, I think I even commented it in my reaction, was like, oh, don't make this sound like a comparison. That's not ideal here. Yeah, it could be emotionally driven. That was in regards to your video you were working on from a while back, yeah. When Echo was fighting with Jinx on the bridge. Is that what you mean? Right, let's have a look at what kind of Carol's message, because it's split in two. What struck me, another question is about the way Jinx interacts with Isha. Yeah. She mentions my sister and I didn't used to be like this. She liked to punch things. I remember that. I think also strikes that is tough in the way she approaches Jinx. Need a more calm approach, like Silco did. Yeah. Because Silco was kind of quite validating, wasn't he, really? And even when Jinx was saying things like, I'm really struggling with these memories and I hear them still, he didn't say that was wrong in any way. He kind of did the whole listening, being there thing, which is probably a more helpful response at that time than what Vi was giving. Yeah, I mean, like, kind of, I'm not sure of that kind of little chat chain there, but like, this is massively complicated, isn't it, with Vi's relationship with Caitlyn as well. I mean, you could have potentially like a ton of these formulations with all of these behaviors that people are doing, all linking into other triggers for other people. And it gets messy really quickly. I was going to hit. So Lana, Vi rejects the Jinx side, yeah, and Jinx rejects the powder side, yeah. Oh, it's not just a Vi issue. Vi rejects the Jinx side, and Jinx rejects the powder side. Jinx rejects the powder side. Yeah, so that's an interesting question. What is Jinx doing with powder? I mean, she's kind of transitioned to Jinx because of the experiences that powder has been through. So I would hazard a guess that as a safety protective mechanism, she would want to keep powder kind of locked away because she's not going to want to re-experience that pain again. If you had her for intervention, if you had her for trauma intervention, that's where you would go into kind of inner child type work, because that's really the central event for her. You'd want to help her process all of that. But I think going it alone, I think Jinx is going to want to keep some distance from powder. Yeah, I agree. I mean, when we're outside of dissociative identity disorder, when we're talking about parts, it's all kind of metaphorical stuff for experience or experiences that someone's had. But I think when other people reject either powder or Jinx, it still invalidates Jinx. That's how it's perceived by her. It's exactly what you say, Matt. I like some of these replies that I get in these chats. I think some of you would make good listeners, good formulators, good counselors, good therapists, good youth workers, that kind of stuff. I love just clicking on comments and then reading it because it puts me in a position where I have to answer. I have to say something. I could just go, oh, I don't want to answer that one. No one look at that one. I think Vi struggles with accepting Jinx over powder. I think Vi struggles with accepting Jinx is also because powder is the only real connection she has to her own life. Yeah, potentially. I think that's a good point. And she probably also sees kind of the mess of a life that Jinx is creating for herself and wants that to stop. I just wish they'd have gone to therapy. I know, right? They would have kept me in business for a while. Could have got the council to fund it, because they could have used the money that they'll now need to spend on a new roof on paying for therapy. They've only been in that position. Yeah, she did, didn't she? Let's not forget Vi sees Jinx as a result of Silcoat. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Like all this. Right, let's finish off this model because I'm kind of getting a bit sidetracked. So we've got Vi saying she's still powered, I need to get her back, it's my fault, she's in there. How do we think that makes Vi feel when she's having these thoughts of it's my fault, I need to get powder back? It's still possible. Guilt probably in there. Oh, I'll tell you what, this latency is so much better for this. I reckon there's anger in there. Anger. So guilt is an emotion that has the function of letting us know that we've done something wrong so we don't repeat it in the future. It also has the function that if we do something wrong and others perceive it as wrong, that we don't get thrown out of the tribe by doing that behavior again. Because if we get thrown out of a tribe, evolutionary basis, we wouldn't survive very long because we can't fight saber-toothed tigers and woolly mammoths by ourselves. So guilt has a function. Anger has a function of letting us know that something unfair or unjust has been done to us or someone else. So it motivates us to take action, to protect ourselves, to protect other people. So anger is a very useful, functional emotion. I hate it when people come in for anger work. It's like, no, you don't need anger work. Your anger is fine. Your anger is functioning as it should. You are experiencing a normal human emotion. Frustrated. Hopeful. That's an interesting one. Yep. She probably is. I mean, there must be a bit of hope there. Otherwise, she wouldn't be doing it. Like there must be like even on like 1% or 2% of hope. You know, it could be as low as that, but it's enough for her to take action. Probably a bit of resentment, maybe. Yeah, I guess so. Is shock an emotion? Oh, I guess it depends if you're talking shock as in the physical. So I would see shock as a physical, maybe a behavioral response, but I would see surprise as an emotion, which it might be more appropriate. Surprise, it's not like surprise, it's your birthday type thing. It can be that kind of response. Like when someone jumps out at you and you're like, oh my gosh, like almost like leading to fear. We have surprise. Oh, disgust is an interesting emotion. Why do you say disgust on over? I love disgust as an emotion. And I know how I feel, like every comment that comes through. You can just go with like, I don't know, just gut feeling. That's fine. I'm not going to not gonna say you're wrong or anything. I mean, there could be an element of disgust there. She could be disgusted with Jinx's behavior. So there can be a difference here. And this is probably an important point to think about as well, is you can be disgusted with a behavior that someone's done, but not be disgusted with the person themselves. So there's a difference between a global evaluation of someone and an evaluation of their behavior. Which, if you imagine in my line of work in justice, I frequently hear of people being judged globally because of something, because of a crime they've committed, as opposed to their behavior being judged. Yeah, the sister she knew was the one who killed a lot of people and was pushing Shimmer. That's a fair point to feel disgusted. I mean, being disgusted is you want to get distance from something. You want to distance yourself from it. Like from an evolutionary perspective, it's this berry smells disgusting. I'm not going to eat it because it's probably going to kill me. So you throw it away. And a really good example we see that in Arcane is when Caitlyn gives Vi the enforcer badge, and she kind of throws it on the floor. Like that's disgust. That's a really good example of disgust. So there could be disgust there, yeah. Yeah, she could be disgusted with the Jinx relationship. There's loads of, to be fair, there's loads of things she could be disgusted about. Yeah. So she's got all these, guilt, anger, frustrated, maybe a bit of hope in there, disgust, resentment. How does that impact her behavior then? So when you're having these thoughts and you're having these emotions, then these emotions can lead to behavior, but also these thoughts can lead to behavior. So some of the behavior you've already written in that she actually comes across as quite invalidating to Jinx. Do we think, so here's a question. Do we think any of this left-hand side at all that relates to Vi? Do we think any of this had anything to do with her getting into a relationship with Caitlyn? Yeah, there'll be some. She's afraid, fear. Yeah. I'm trying to think of the first time when Vi saw Caitlyn. I can't remember now. I'm trying to think of what led to them working together or being together. I can't remember. I remember them going to the brothel. What happened just before that? Oh, she gets her out of prison, doesn't she? She gets her out of Stillwater. Yeah, okay. Do we think if she had found Jinx straight away and went, "Oh, Jinx, oh, I'm back for you. Can you be powder again?" And Jinx went, "Yeah, all right then. Thanks for coming back." Would her and Caitlyn stay together? It's just one of these questions. It's just interesting. Like we're never going to know. But I'm wondering if the behavior. I'm wondering if there's something to do with behavior here that looks at. I wonder if it somehow made Vi want to connect with someone else, as in feel close to someone else. Because there's a behavior here of being seen with Caitlyn, of being with Caitlyn. And it doesn't have to be like romantically or that. It's just because that's a trigger for Jinx. There's a trigger there of seeing Vi with Caitlyn. Now, Jinx's perspective of that, which remember is the important bit of this behavior, is that she's been replaced. But Vi's perspective of being with Caitlyn is that we like each other. But Vi's probably thinking, I can be with Caitlyn and still have room for Jinx. Stroke powder. perhaps. Let's see what people think about that. Yeah. They agree on each other. Yeah. I think Kate reminds her of the people she loves. Yeah, you have a good heart. Sees her mum. Yeah. Even compares her to Powder in her obsessions. Sarah says no. I mean, it's. I mean, we're kind of making some inferences and assumptions here, aren't we? But there was something that drew Jinx to Caitlyn outside of, you know, getting out Stillwater. And trying to locate Jinx kind of initially. There's something that kind of kept them together. I think Vi was genuine. Yeah. I think Caitlyn saw in Vi what no Pilty has ever seen in her. It must have been very validating for Vi. Yeah, exactly right. So if you've got a schema that's full of like blame, you got a bit of responsibility in there. I mean, your schema towards others, it could still be I've let others down. Maybe that schema leads to kind of feeling validated by Caitlyn, because it's like loosening that schema a bit. But I think no matter how you end up with it, being with Caitlyn is an absolutely, there's no question at all. I'm going to do this in big pen. That triggers Jinx. Look how big that is. There's no question there. So however we end up at this behavior, kind of doesn't matter. Because the function doesn't matter. The form in this instance is what matters, because the form is what Jinx sees and the form is what Jinx interprets. And unless anything changes in this cycle, that's going to start this process again. So where would point of intervention be? So I was just reading the comments then. Potentially. Let me duplicate this. So there's going to be some intervention points that we can't use. There's another way to look at this. So we can't use that as an intervention point. We can't use that as an intervention point. And the reason we can't use them is because it's the other ones that impact emotion. You can't just change emotion without changing the others. You can't just say to someone, don't feel guilt, without doing anything with thoughts or behaviors. So they're not intervention points. Yeah, right. So if you could kindly take Kate out, that would be very kind. That would be a start. I mean, if this was more of a real life scenario where Jinx and Kate, where Vi and Kate, you know, they weren't part of a strike force, but they were potentially going around a town or a city or something, and were kind of running into looking for Jinx. You'd probably want to run this model through with them if they were coming in for intervention and say, look, imagine how this looks to Jinx. And also giving them some psychoeducation about Jinx's schema. And it's not so much what the behavior is, because they'd say, yeah, but we're together. We've still got room for Jinx. We're just trying to find her. You'd want to give some kind of education around schemas and how that might be perceived by Jinx. And actually, for longer term success, it might be better off purposely not being together in the vicinity where Jinx might be. Sometimes I go through these things with, real people, and I kind of point out and say, well, maybe, like, one I get quite often is, when you shout at your daughter for doing this thing, then it triggers her, and then this whole thing happens and it all blows up. How about you don't shout at her, and you perhaps not like push this one thing, let her leave her bedroom floor a little bit messy. And then you get pushback of, well, I shouldn't. They're the child, I'm the adult, so they should listen to me. And you're like, maybe you're being a bit rigid with those rules there. No, they're the child, I'm the adult, they should listen to me, and they will listen to me. And then you kind of get stuck because the person's not willing to change their behavior. And then you get into the kind of the thoughts of, what does that mean? Like, if your child isn't listening to you, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? And then it often goes back to, parenting styles and how they were parented and things. And, what does it mean about respect and things and all these rigid rules that people have kind of made up for themselves. So it starts getting really difficult. Oh, I was going to highlight that. It went last second. It's possible it turns out okay, but I think Vi still lacked a fundamental understanding. Yeah, I don't think Vi has any real understanding of the impact of Powder and Jinx's trauma at all. I don't think she can mentalize very well. How does Jinx feeling replaced and triggered by it fit into her schema? Well, her scheme, I mean, she'll have a schema of she's a Jinx, she gets left behind, because if we think about event centrality, from her perspective, Vi leaving her will be massive. And that comes right off the back of all of her friends being killed. So people leave me. So why wouldn't the one survivor of that also leave me? Because people leave me. Like, it kind of makes sense. Yeah, it's just more rejection to her, exactly as you say. I'm not sure what you're saying here about Vi. Even though Kate is a romantic interest to Vi and not a little sister figure. But Jinx doesn't see that, does she? Jinx has no idea what Vi and Kate's interest in each other are at all. Oh yeah, here we go. So I didn't see other people had started answering. So like Onover says, yeah, I get feeling Jinx sees love as an all or nothing. Potentially. And interestingly, you hear this term used different times, but you get this idea of splitting, where people are like all or nothing. So that could probably apply to this situation. I theorize Jinx doesn't really perceive romantic love, really. She has a very asexual vibe throughout the show to me. Yeah. She might, I mean, yeah. She might see it as romantic, she might not do, but either way, she sees like, oh, I don't know, Vi has just replaced me with this person. And it probably doesn't help that Jinx then sees Vi later on in a enforcer uniform after what happened to her parents. Yeah, so exactly. So Noodle raises a really good point here that actually what needs to change is unfair to ask either of them. So this is something that's really interesting in formulations is, I mean, to be fair, the formulation doesn't really care about fairness of people wanting to change. It's just merely documenting a maintenance process And actually, sometimes the answer is just to, oh, let me draw. It's just given up. It's just to split. See you later. Sometimes that happens in relationships. Like like there's just so much toxicity there. Oh, when did she mention that last? Remembering the smell. It might be interesting for something I've got coming up. Well, I'm going to start winding down in the next 10 minutes as well. Yeah, exactly. Agree with that. Oh, not seen yet. Oops. Oh no, we have, haven't we? Oh no, spoilers. Oh. I can't even think how that fits in. I'm just interested in it from a like a memory perspective and like trauma stuff. It's all right. I get direct messages on Patreon with people saying, "Don't look in the chat quite yet because there's some spoilers in there," and then they're going to try and sort it out. It's fine. And you know, I've got a memory like a goldfish. I would have by tomorrow morning. I would have forgotten about that. Yeah, we see her smell Vanda's jacket, but that's not her parents, unless Vanda has been very close to Mumsy, and she can smell it off that. So let's just finish this up because it's getting late. I think one of my daughters is still up. Should be in bed. I can hear the telly on. So yeah, so we've got potential intervention of just trying to split them up. That ain't gonna happen. We got behavioral interventions. Well, let's get the Galaxy pen out. We've got behavior interventions. Don't be with Caitlin. I don't know. What else would you say? Try not to fight so much. Look at this. Look at this pen. It's lovely. You would probably do some work here around education of what things look like through Jinx's perspective to try and shift. So she's still powder. You would probably want to try and shift this. She's still powder and go, well, she's kind of not anymore. She's this new person who has got powder's experiences and is made up of powder's experiences, but actually she's not going to be powder again. And we need to try and weaken this. The thing is with formulations is, and when you make like networks like this, you don't know when you introduce an intervention, you don't always know what impact it's going to have, because this could have the impact that she's not powder anymore. I'm sorry, powder's gone. That could cause an emotional response of like grief, and it could, you know, potentially push her into depression. Or it could go down the hope that, okay, maybe this new person, I can still help them. We just don't know. There's a lot of intervention here for Vi. Anything with Jinx herself. Yeah, I mean, you'd wanna process the shit out of this, wouldn't you? Like a schema. You'd want to, you know, the rejection, and actually, because we're obviously privy to all sides of it in Arcane, that she wasn't actually being abandoned. You'd want to process all that stuff through. You'd want to do some kind of behavior intervention around probably things that would mean that you'd probably want to do some work on the dissociation, because the dissociation might actually loosen the recklessness a bit, in terms of, you know, letting loose with the chain gun and things. then you might have an impact there. And then if she's less aggressive, sorry, if she's less reckless, then that might have an impact up here. It might not trigger Vi as much. So you can start to see how these things all interact with each other. Yeah, so this is why I haven't touched on Isha, because actually I think when we do another stream, we will do more of a protective version of this, and we'll throw Isha into it. Maybe not as a person, but Isha maybe as a we'll throw her. We might throw her in here. We might throw Isha like into here, into this bit, because Isha might be changing the schema a bit. I've looked after Isha for 6 months and I haven't killed her. Maybe I'm not so much of a Jinx. What impact does then that have on my thoughts? Well, maybe I'm not a Jinx all the time. Okay. So now I'm not feeling all this all the time. I'm actually now have access to other emotions that I didn't have before. In fact, there's actually times where I feel a little bit happy with her when we're playing monsters and bugs and things. And actually, we do see that has an impact on her behavior because she doesn't go out and become reckless as much. So let's not get into this now. This is like another hour's worth of work probably. But that's really interesting, isn't it? And actually, we see the hallucinations start to reduce a bit. Oh gosh, let's not do that. No, my mind's there already. No. But that's just acknowledging your comment there, Sarah. We do start to see a bit of a shift. So yeah, so I was going to ask, so when would that be good? After 6? Yeah, because we've just done 5, haven't I? So after 6. I'm just writing up there to remind myself. Do you, Noodle? Like, I kind of think, like, I look at this stuff sometimes. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, are people really interested in this? Because I think what's difficult with it is that you don't end up with any solutions. Like, there's no answers here, really, are there? It's about understanding. And if I'm writing if I write a report for children's services because they're looking at removing a child from a home, or I'm writing a report for the Youth Justice Service because they want to punish someone for criminal behavior and they're wondering about, what shall we do with them that might actually be helpful to change their behavior, then this is what we're looking at. But it doesn't give anyone certainty. I think that's probably what I was trying to say earlier with when I was saying it doesn't give you answers. It doesn't give you any certainty that what you're going to do is going to actually work, but it gives you the best chance. It gives you the best place to offer some intervention.